Welcome to the Healers Café, the number one show for medical practitioners and holistic healers to have heart to heart conversations about their day to day lives while sharing their expertise for improving your health and wellness. Welcome to the Healers Cafe. Today I have with me Laura Jane Layton, and she's a recovering corporate workaholic. So I'd like to know that story a little bit, and we'll find out. Anyway, her work related stress resulted in neglecting her self care. And her message is a beacon of hope for women seeking to transform their inner bully voice into their best friends. So I think this could be an appropriate discussion. Like, first of all, when did you know you were a self-bully?
Oh, probably we all have that negative self-talk, that even growing up, oh, I'm not as cute as my sister. My sister has more friends than I do. We always second guess ourselves. And I didn't realize how bad I was bullying myself until I was into maybe middle age. It just was normal. And it's like, why can I can change the way I talk to myself?
Right, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, so let's give a bit of context on, because this is about health. Stress is certainly related to health, but what like why are you wanting to share your message to my audience? What is it that we can really learn from, a self-professed workaholic, corporate workaholic? So what's involved in that? Because not everyone's into the workaholism can happen in any field. But tell us a little bit what makes corporate workaholics work that hard typically.
For me, I can tell you why I did. It was a lot of self-doubt. I wasn't sure I was as good as the other people in my department or as good as the managers equal to me. And so I busted my butt as hard as I could. If I needed to stay 2, 3 hours longer or work overnight because I had a deadline, I did it. And it was so important to have money. Money is that thing that keeps us a roof over our heads. But I had no idea how bad it was killing my health, until you wake up in the hospital and go, okay, I have got to make a change. I cannot let this do it anymore. And so, how do I take away that self doubt and those reasons why I'm staying at the office long hours and answering phone calls and emails in the middle of dinner? It's like, why? Like those things should be precious, And so where are we setting our boundaries and how are we enforcing them? Boundaries aren't for the other people. They're
Right.
not, you can't say, well, never call me after 8. It's going to happen.
Mhm.
So how are you going to enforce those? And how are we going to make sure that we keep those boundaries? Because once somebody crosses, they're going to keep crossing. And so it's that self doubt. It's like, well, it can wait till tomorrow. There is no reason it's so urgent right now. And I think that's when I love email and text, so I can just respond. Like, I'm off for the night, done. You know, and so how do you set those boundaries to take care of yourself and stop that negative chatter? Like, oh, if I don't get this done on time, I might get fired. Or if I don't have all of this, my ducks in a row, the other managers are gonna think I don't deserve to be here. And that's all negative self-talk,
Mhm.
or some people call it imposter syndrome. Sometimes call it the inner critic. I call it my bully because, I'm going to just, this one, I know it's not about your podcast, but when I was raped many years ago, that was a one time incident.
Mhm.
How many times did it replay in my mind? Over and over and over. And it's like, how do you get that thought out of your mind? And it's like that for so that was an exaggeration, but that same patterning, I can't even say it, happens in all sites of ways that we're doing our own bully. And if our best friend was to trip, What would we say? Ha ha ha, you're an idiot. You're so clumsy. No, we'd say, it's okay. Come on, let's go. I'll give you a hand. I'll help you out. Why do we not do that for ourselves?
Mhm.
We are the only thing that keeps us going. There's no
Right.
outside force, there's no outside anything else. And when we ignore our own personal needs, we're letting ourselves down. That's the bully in our life is ourselves.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
So, yeah, why don't we work through that process a little bit? Like, so what comes first? Like, how does a person become, because you could say, well, oh, I like to succeed. I like to make sure my work is good. Sure, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but, it's how I operate, and I'm proud of it and I feel good. How do you distinguish when it's truly like a bully voice, when you become aware that this is not in your best self-interest, and it's certainly not a self-care thing? Like, how did you become aware of that?
so I started paying attention to how I talk to other people and
Mhm.
how the thoughts were in my head. You know, that dialogue back and forth. I go, I don't talk to other people like this. So why do I talk to me like this? And I know we know ourselves 24 hours a day, every second of those hours, and we know all our ups and downs. And you pretty much only see the highlight reels of everybody else. You know, those basketball games, that all the perfect shots, you don't see the bloopers. And we know our bloopers. And so there's that piece of shame, that thing that kind of holds us back. Is like, I'm not as good as them because you only see your bloopers. And that's built in, that is the thing that we got from ancient years ago that says protect yourself. If you don't know where the saber-toothed tiger is, you're going to get eaten. And so we have that natural thing to grab onto those negatives for protection. I don't need to know where the saber-toothed tigers are. If someone tells me I'm ugly, why do I have to even think another second of that? I wonder if I really look bad today. Oh my gosh. Oh, you go to the grocery store out of a really quick run and you're going, oh, someone's wondering who let her out of the house. She didn't even comb her hair. She's got holey pants on her, really weird sweats. Well, it's yourself. Second guessing yourself as you're walking and doing things, wondering what everybody else is thinking. But guess what? They're thinking of themselves. So I started consciously changing the words I used. So
Mhm.
instead of saying, I can't have that, like I'm on a diabetic, so I have certain things I avoid. I can have it. I can have it. I choose not to because I don't want the consequences of it. And so giving yourself those little tiny word changes starts freeing up that shame. My favorite one is I'm sorry. It's like I used to say sorry to the wall. I'd turn a corner and bump into it and go, sorry. That is a person who didn't even want to exist because there was shame everywhere she went, even to inanimate objects. And so I started saying things like, thank you, or, you know, yeah, walk into a meeting. Think about this. You're on a call, you're calling a customer service rep and you're complaining about the service. And then they go, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. You know, that sounds nice, right? But what if they said, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We can take care of that. Just look at the different feel that has. And when you can say thank you to yourself, oh, thank you all for keeping me upright. You know, find the positive and find that way of switching those around. And there's times where right in the middle of a conversation, I go, wait, I'm rephrasing that. And I'll come back with, how do I say that in a positive way? A way that is building somebody or something up and myself, or am I tearing it down? And
Right.
it's our words. And
Mhm.
it's like, We just have to change teeny tiny things. And it takes a lot of practice. I've been trying it for years and I'm getting there.
And so with your health, I mean, it looks like you had heart surgery,
Mhm.
bio. So did it, is that the wake up call? Is that where you went, whoa, or how did it become clear that you had to do boundaries, you had to look at your language, you had to do a bit of self-care, self-love?
I let the car completely collapse. I didn't take it to the shop. I didn't do anything. I just kept filling her up and driving her. And that's what I did. I let myself go because getting to the office and getting back was more important than stopping and getting an oil change. And we need things for our bodies to take care of them. And if we don't do it, nobody else will. It's only your responsibility or my responsibility. It's an inside job. You can't do it on the outside. I can be mended on the outside, but only prevention is from the inside.
Yeah. But so how do you so let's say you we'll use your analogy with the car. So now you realize that you got to get an oil change and you might have to pump one of those tires. Otherwise, you're, you it'll affect the steering and etc. So now you're late to work. What happens in your
I,
mind?
u- I use this analogy. We stop at the gas station and I don't have time to fill up. So I put 5 cents in and I jump back in the car and I start running. And guess what? You're out of gas again. So I have to stop and get another 5 cents in. And then you get to get back on the road and go a little bit further. And if we don't sit down and do a full setup, if we don't give our time that moment to really recharge, we're not making it. And we, as in a lot of corporate workaholics, we think we're invincible
Mhm.
because we we got this. Hey, look at, we live by our titles and expect everybody else to fall in line. It's like, no, this is not how life should be. And it took that wake up call for me. I didn't do it until I had to. Like a lot of people say, they don't change their diet until after. I didn't change my stress until after. And it was like, okay, stress is the reason I overeat. Stress is the reason I don't sleep. Stress was the reason for all of my other unhealthy habits. I didn't have time to go to the gym. I didn't have time to do anything. And so for me, I had to focus on that stress level of how do I get rid of it. And number one was to be friendly to myself.
What would your life be like if you were pain free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
Mhm, mhm. Right. So now that you know this, so you're afterwards, right? So you still have your corporate job?
I did retire. I did have it for many years after, but I
Okay.
have retired now.
When you had it afterwards, right after the wake-up call, and again, I'm going to go with your analogy with the car. So now you realize, okay, you've got to do whatever it was, an oil change. Well, so now I guess you would know that an oil change, so you'd plan it into your calendar. right? But let's say
Yeah.
that can only be done during the week, and that's when you're at work. How do you then get to work? Do you have to justify to anyone, or you that you just have to just say, well, yeah, I'm, half an hour late, but had to do it, or how do you talk to yourself about finding the time, shifting that, outside of like positivity, which I understand, but how do you actually create the time
You know,
in your schedule?
I have this thing that you put your me time on the calendar. And
Okay.
yes, I do understand that sometimes it'll get trumped. You don't cancel, you reschedule, and it cannot be a month away. You reschedule for as soon as you can get it in. I started putting it on my calendar. I started putting I'm not in the office until 8:30. I am out of the office at 5. I have a lunch break. Now if I had to move those, that's okay. But it gave the guardrails that somebody else saw. I put them as out of the office, so when someone's looking at your calendar to book a meeting, they'll ask before they'll book over something that says out of office. And so I took that time to say, I'm doing these things. And then had a heart to heart with my manager. Well, actually, however you call him, the person over me, supervisor, and just says, I no longer am going to do this. And if it's going to be a problem, I can start looking for something else. And one of my managers, this is when I was in the hospital and in recovery when I wasn't allowed to work. And then when I came back, I was told that was part time, little hours. And he said, half of you is better than a whole somebody else. So we'll take it. So it was like,
Right.
that validation that I overworked for nothing. I probably could have all these years been playing go home at 5, but I didn't.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think often when you have self-respect and self-love, people have it for you. They see it, then they go, "Oh, yeah, gosh, maybe I should take, this time for myself," or, like I think you can really affect people by being a really great example as well.
We wore the badge of honor of how many PTO days we had left. I've
Right?
got 4 years and 10 months built up. Like, take your PTO, guys. Go enjoy your life. Work is going to be there.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Well, so any other things you could share to help people, well, either recognize, like, what was the hardest part for you about all this?
Identifying the places where I was weak at
Hmm.
the time and paying attention and building them up. Um, I didn't take the time to exercise. I still take little time to exercise, but I do more than I ever did for 30 years in the corporate environment. It's like, where are those places where I could benefit? And so I started doing like lunch clubs with the people at work, or we'd go out and do the flow ropes or go walking or do something where we got away from the office. Or you'd walk in after one of those really pissy ass meetings and just thought, I can't take it. I got to have some outside time and go sit by the tree or in the grass and just let yourself relax. Where before that, it was bang, 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 bang. That was a hard switch because I felt obvious. I felt I'm being lazy. And so I had to change the word, I went back to that Stephen Covey book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and said, I'm sharpening my saw. I can't keep working with a dull saw. And those moments were the time that I took. And so that one principle that I had read at least 20 years before my heart surgery came back and said, you are now going to sharpen your saw. And that's what I did for the next several years in the corporate environment is I got to go sharpen my saw. I got to
Mhm.
take a moment. And nobody ever questioned it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's like, oh, I could have been doing this all along. I thought that was taboo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
What?
it's we do perpetuate the problem, right? It's I mean, one thing is to get out of the victim mentality that it's happening to you, which obviously
Mhm.
that's not how I mean, maybe unconsciously you perceived that you had no choice, but really, when it comes down to it, we have lots of choice, right?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
have so many choices. We weigh and measure the cost benefit analysis of each. I have a podcast on the cost benefit analysis of life. You know, do I
Yeah.
eat this hamburger or do I not? And what is the cost benefit? And really, some of these benefits that we take
Mhm.
are short term and not long term. And is that really what we want?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But that takes a moment, right?
Oh, yeah.
To
It
ask,
does. It takes some self-reflection. You can't just go on autopilot. I call them my robot years. I didn't do anything but
right?
do.
Yeah. And actually taking the time, I mean, you're retired now, but when you did go back to work, did you find yourself actually even more effective?
Yes. Don't is that so sad? I was able to really put effort into things and I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Just a clearer brain, less brain fog, less fatigue, less annoyance. And those are the areas that triggered for me when I was in overdrive. I'm fatigued. I'm tired. I'm foggy. I just can't concentrate. Those went away and I was way more effective.
Mhm.
All those years, I could have been better, but it's okay. We made it.
No, I mean, there's comparisons, right, with different countries that have like 6-week vacations. Some have two, this kind of thing, or they have shorter days, or they have, less, yeah, shorter days or less days a week, or all of this. And it seems that the more time you can balance with your life, the better you actually work at your work, right? So
Yes.
I mean, that is now true, right? So I think yeah, we're sort of, if we pay attention to this and more people pay attention to this, companies and all that, I think, we could live a much more integrated life, and avoid this. Because I mean, part of it is you thought that's the norm, that's what you should do, right? It's because that's how people do it. It's around you, right? If you had one person doing it differently and you'd be going, gosh, they seem really fit and happy and healthy, you'd probably be going, what are you doing differently?
I dished on the guys that left early.
Oh, there you
I was not nice. I
go.
cannot believe that they do not care about getting this done. I didn't realize they were going to be more effective at it in the morning than staying late to get it done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure you didn't, right? Because it's, again, what most people do, I mean, we take it for granted as being the normal thing. And, it's usually wrong. It's like, it's usually the thinkers that, the oddballs, the one that reflect, that are closer to getting it right than the masses that follow, and we're
Mhm.
definitely not in a mass system, you know, whether like corporate behavior is a mass system,
Yes.
which will change en masse when it changes or as it's changing, but it does take people to recognize, that there's something not quite right and be honest about it, right? Because it's easy to hold on to a story, like if you were saying, well, I worked really hard and yeah, sure, I had a heart thing, whatever, but I was really better for the company than now, for example. That's not what you're saying, you know.
You know, it would have been nice, but yeah, those early years, they did not have the best of me.
No, No, but it's interesting, right? And that's okay, right? Like, that's it's that kind of honesty that really makes people go, huh, you know, on both ends, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah,
matter, yeah, if you're the employee working for, or if you're the one creating the corporate job, like it's a good reminder, for sure.
absolutely.
So our time is actually coming to an end. Is there any last like, or how people get hold of you, or do you have a book, or you're doing a podcast? Maybe you could
I
tell.
I do have a podcast, and I do have a website that has some great blogs on it about self-care. Um, but my podcast is The Laura Jane Layton Show, so very easy. And my blog is on laurajanelayton.com. So there is like I have self-care from the inside out and a bunch of different things about body image, talking about being raped and you know, things like that. So it's pretty transparent.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, thank you for spending some time.
Well,
And
thank you for having me.
so the discussion with Laura Jane really, symbolizes so much what everyone needs to do, whether it's the corporate world where we're quite used to, hearing this overwork mentality. That's how everyone does it. But that mentality has its own place in the professional world, in the in any industry, whether it's led by you or led by another, where you're proving you instead of really just coming to terms with balance and what feels right and self-care. And again, as usual, it's usually a big health event like a heart attack, or we didn't actually determine what it was, but it was a heart related issue in hospital. And then change comes in, and that's when people realize that health actually matters, and we really need to start with that and then live our lives around including health in our well-being and in everything we do. Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on, as I post a new podcast every Wednesday with tons of useful information and tips for natural healing that you won't want to miss.